The compatibility of concurrent high-intensity interval training and resistance training for muscular strength and hypertrophy, a systematic review and meta-analysis. In this meta-analysis, researchers looked at previous studies to find comparisons between resistance training paired with high-intensity interval training, otherwise known as HIIT, and resistance training alone. HIIT was developed using the concept of sports which involve high-intensity exertions of exercise with little rest, repeated multiple times throughout competition. HIIT and resistance training are often prescribed concurrently as muscular strength is needed for sprints and jumping. However, reports of causing compromised adaptive responses while using concurrent training is known as the interference effect among researchers. The purpose of this study is to assess whether the previously reported interference effect is exacerbated by comparing concurrent HIIT and resistance training to resistance training alone on measure of strength and hypertrophy via a systematic review and meta-analysis. Methods. This systematic review included all previous research up to September 2017. All articles reviewed required a comparison between one group performing HIIT combined with resistance training to a group performing the same resistance training program alone. All articles had to have an intervention of greater than 4 weeks in duration. These articles also had HIIT defined as repeated bouts of less than 5 minutes of exercise where intensities were either greater than 80% max heart rate or greater than 100% lactate threshold or greater than 90% VO2 max. All articles included in this systematic review had to report changes in muscular strength or changes in lean muscle mass. These changes were recorded via dynamic repetition maximum, biopsy, ultrasonography, computed tomography, dual X-ray absorptiometry, MRI, and/or densitometry. The researchers included a total of 14 studies in the meta-analysis. Of these 14, 4 studies included untrained populations, while 10 studies included trained populations. Trained populations may have consisted of collegiate athletes or semi-professional athletes. Of the 14 studies, 7 of them performed high-intensity interval training on a bicycle, and 7 studies performed high-intensity interval training through running. Researchers found that concurrent training yielded an average of 19.4% increase in strength, while resistance training alone averaged a 23.9% increase in strength. The exercises tested vary by study but include leg press, bench press, back squat, bicep curl, and half squat. There was no significant effect of lean muscle mass between concurrent training and resistance training alone. This table displays the researchers of all 14 studies, including the exercises tested for strength, the number of participants in each study, their pre-training load and post-training load for concurrent training and resistance training protocols. You can see in bold at the bottom of the chart the average change in strength between concurrent training and resistance training alone. Discussion. This meta-analysis really highlighted that resistance training only groups had a greater increase in lower body strength compared to concurrent training groups. However, the concurrent training groups had similar results compared to the resistance training only groups in strength and lean muscle mass of the upper body, and there was virtually no difference between groups in lower body lean muscle mass. The researchers looked a little bit deeper into these studies and found evidence that suggested that lower body impediment may occur with cycling HIIT but not running HIIT. I believe this might be because running is a weight-bearing exercise where cycling is not weight-bearing. In addition, there is some evidence that suggests that 24 hours of rest between concurrent training may alleviate the impediment in lower body muscular strength following concurrent HIIT and resistance training. In the discussion, the researchers offered some mechanical explanations of their findings. The first explanation is that HIIT and resistance training may recruit from the same motor unit pool, thereby fatiguing that motor unit's neurophysiological capability to generate force efficiently, impeding the ability to perform resistance training at the prescribed intensities. Secondly, during HIIT, energy production is typically anaerobic, and thus metabolic byproducts such as lactate can inhibit contractile force. These reasons may be why the upper body was not negatively affected by concurrent exercise, because the high-intensity interval training did not put much stress on the upper body as it did with the lower body due to the running and cycling. One limitation to this systematic review was that only 14 studies were included in the meta-analysis. In addition, many of the studies had different protocols, including the number of participants and rest periods. The majority of participants in these studies had less than 24 hours between their high-intensity interval training and their resistance training if they were in the concurrent training group. This led researchers to the possible conclusion that a longer rest period between concurrent training sessions will lead to a higher increase in strength compared to resistance training alone. Lastly, differences in training status from untrained individuals to trained individuals to collegiate or semi-professional athletes can significantly alter the physiological response to training. Lastly, researchers hypothesized that having a rest period greater than 24 hours between HIIT and resistance training may not impede strength gains as opposed to a shorter rest period between sessions. Next, researchers compared running versus cycling for the high-intensity interval training. Participants in the HIIT that involved running displayed greater lower body strength after the conclusion of the study compared to participants that used cycling as their modality. This shows that the modality used for HIIT matters when you are looking at strength. It is important to note that concurrent training and resistance training alone both improve dynamic strength across all the studies. In addition, the difference in lower body strength between two groups was pretty small. The reduction in strength between concurrent training and resistance training alone may be a small price to pay for improvements in other aspects that HIIT can improve, such as VO2 max, sprint time, and maximal aerobic speed. Overall, coaches will have to decide what is important in preparing their athlete for their sport.